real quick.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be, extremely excited at the moment because, it might be difficult, especially if you lost your job. But if you think about it, the silver lining is that you finally can take the change that you've been wanting to do. So it sort of forced so many of us, right, to go into the direction that essentially we maybe should be going to already, but we didn't have the courage. So this pandemic sort of pushed us and gave us the courage and left us no choice essentially but to move forward. So I think that's important. So
what is natural, in fact, Elena, what is happening in a lot of the people that we are speaking with is that they have a phase where they have it a little bit hard. They are a little bit stuck with their thoughts in order to take the first steps, what we call procrastination or postponing the stuff that we should be doing right now. Now, from the psychological perspective, procrastination comes from the fact that in our brain, we have two areas that are constantly fighting with each other. The old area that has impulsions or routines, the subjective part where we have emotions, and then there is the new part of the brain, the one that takes a little bit more of complex decisions, who matches a little bit, who make us think and plan ahead, that are constantly fighting. And the thing is that because the old part of the brain, the one who has the constant routines, the one that likes the status quo, doesn't like change, is very often winning, in fact, because it is stronger. It contains 90% of our brain. So there is this constant fight makes that we procrastinate, we take time to take decisions. The good thing is that there is ways around that we are going to be exploring during this discussion, because the brain has something called neuroplasticity, and this neuroplasticity teaches us how to design ourselves a path to move forward.
Absolutely, and I think that's so important. And we often feel that we can't make a shift, or maybe we don't know. We feel like we always try to find other reasons of why we're not making that shift, and we say, oh, maybe we're just not made for it. But in fact, it's probably just emotions playing a role. Your fear, it could be fear, it could be the fear of the unknown, fear of change. So if you're able to tackle that fear, that emotion, then you're much more able to make that shift. So it's essentially just creating the right strategy. And this is what I want to spend majority of the time here talking about. The next slide is, what is that strategy? And another thing to keep in mind is that this is something Ivana and I do a lot of research on in terms of the emotions that people go through. So part of what we do with Besser is doing a lot of research on neuroscience as it affects us and our behavior and decision making. So this is fact. This is not something him and I came up with. This is something that is proven by scientists, by neuroscientists, by psychologists, and behavioral scientists around the world that are top-notch in this. So these are the learnings from them. And in addition to that, of course, in our work with individuals and in my work in career development, the strategies we're going to share something that works, and they might be simpler than you think. So here we have, so you might have the choice. So this is what I've asked you guys in the beginning, right? So making the choice, as Yvonne said, this is the difficult part, right? So do I stay in my current company? Do I change? Do I go into entrepreneurship? All great questions to ask. I want to also make a point as well, is that this change that you want to make is going to look very different for everybody on this call. So the idea here is to take away what you feel is applicable in your case, to customize it to your way. And everything we're going to be talking about, you can essentially customize and the different tools and tips and make it into your own. Another thing I wanted to share with you, I was speaking with a client actually recently as well, and she got an offer recently. So she's in a very comfortable finance position at the moment. She got an offer to join a fintech startup. And she said, I don't know if I should change, like, what should I do? And as she went on speaking, she was telling me basically in summary of how much she's completely drained in her job right now, the finance job. And she said, listen, I don't know what's happening. Give it a second. The beauty of working from home. It's called adaptability. All right, so So anyway, so she's very comfortable in her finance position right now. She's making good money. She said it's super comfortable. I hate it. I hate it. I'm not going anywhere. It's not aligned with my goals. But the fintech opportunity is something that is scary, and I don't know if it's going to succeed. And I said, I don't know why we're still having this conversation. You just told me how much you don't want to be in your current job. And so another thing she said, but you know what? This is normal. This is what, I didn't know I could, I didn't know I should even be in a startup until it was brought to my attention, right? And the point here is that we don't know what we don't know. What do I mean by that? Is that we are likely to have the same behavior and processes as those around us. So if you are in a situation where you're not sure of that change, talk to people that made the change. Don't talk to people, well, not don't talk, but be mindful of only getting one side of that information. So if you're looking to make a change, do not necessarily speak only to people who are in your current job or doing the same thing that you're doing. Talk to people who made the change. Talk to people who are in startup world and entrepreneurship world. Because the thing is, it's great to hear advice. Everybody has something of value to add to us, but you need to identify if that applies to you. So you need to make an educated choice that is right for you. Because otherwise we get very much stuck that this is the norm and this is normal, and companies don't accept career change seekers. I'm telling you, they do. This is not, again, not my personal opinion. This is individuals that I work with that continuously make a change at 30, 40, and 50 and above. All right.
Elena, there is something quite interesting. I was thinking about the world of entrepreneurship. In fact, in entrepreneurship, one of the key things or key jobs, or in fact, of the co-founders is to reduce the risk of what you're doing, so that you don't burn your money, that you have a validation that you are going to find customers and so on. So in our personal life, we also need to find ways, in fact, to reduce the risk. Entrepreneurs, what they do is that they fake it. They do a small experiments that allows them to reduce the risk. And it is very close to what you were just mentioning, in fact. What are the type of experiments in order to validate? The big assumption is, am I made to be an entrepreneur? Do I have what it takes? Or am I made to move from finance to marketing? It is about doing these small experimentations. One, as you mentioned, meeting the right people who are already in the target position that you want in the future, talking to them, doing an extra job for a couple of hours to validate if you are made to move from finance to marketing, meeting people who are into this cohort of where you want to go. So life, if you have the fear, in fact, about moving to another in another direction, it is about constantly doing the circle of validation, doing small experimentations that you can do within 2 days. Something that you can go and meet someone in your new career. Something that you can implement quickly, do the learnings, and revalidate your assumption. Reduce the risk by doing something. The first step is validating.
Absolutely. And before we go into the action of, kind of how to do it, another important thing to keep in mind is that sometimes you might find out this is not the right time to do a career change. That can also happen. I'm all up for change. I'm all up for entrepreneurship, but there's a time to do it. And this is what you need to be very realistic to yourself about. So this is where you need to ask yourself a series of questions. Number one, what are my non-negotiables? Non-negotiables meaning, are you willing to move countries? Are you willing to drop in title? Are you willing to drop in salary? Or are those things non-negotiable? So you need to keep in mind that those non-negotiables are very important so that you don't waste your time on things that are not worth your time. And another thing is, keep in mind, is that sometimes a step back means 2 steps forward in a shorter period of time. I'll give you another example, Ivan. So yesterday, a couple of days ago, I was talking to another client. He works as a chief architect to one of the biggest companies in Saudi. And he said, and he wants to make a shift because he's hit that glass ceiling because he's an expat and he's not able to move forward, etc. And so he got a role, a recruiter contacted him for a role in another multinational here in the UAE. And he said, but it's a step down, Elena. So he shut the role down without even giving a recruiter a chance, without even having a conversation, because he acted on maybe perhaps an emotion, say, oh no, I'm not going to take a step down. That's an emotion. That's a, I don't know, what do you call it? Ego. It's not ego. I don't want to use the word ego, whatever it is. It's a fear of, no, I'm going to lose. I've been working for 25 years to get to this title. Now I have to drop. And so we had this discussion. This happened, the discussion between him and I happened afterwards. And he said, but that would have been a step back. I said, yes, but your goal is to get out from a company you're in into a multinational in the UAE. And this was one of the big multinationals here. And we need to look beyond just the title, right? So we need to look at, what is it costing you to stay where you are as well? That's a personal choice. I'm not here to make the choices for you guys, but something to think about. What are your non-negotiables? And another thing to think about, and this is something our guest, if those of you who joined for Dr. Dawn Graham, she is the career coach oh gosh, I forgot the business school. Anyway, in the States, in a big business school in the States. And she joined us as a guest speaker a couple of weeks ago. And she said, also, people might want to look at what are your stepping stones, meaning sometimes you might not be able to get from A to B right away. You might take a couple years, 2-3 years. So your next job, especially if you're a career change seekers, which is 50% of you on this webinar are, career change can be easy, can be difficult. It depends on how big the change is. All right, and what have you done to make that change? But you might not always be able to jump from point A to point B, but you might go to point A, point 01, point 02. So you might need to take those little steps that might get you to where you actually want to make a change into. And this is where we need to be, again, really realistic. Are we willing to sacrifice some maybe title, salary, whatever it may be? I'm not saying you have to. I'm just saying that might be a what's the word? I'm out of words today. I don't know why. It might be a criteria that you need to think about. I don't know, an aspect you need to consider. All right. So to clarify. All right.
Elena, so I just wanted to get back to the point that you have highlighted about the non-negotiables, because there is a psychological perspective that is quite interesting, is that the non-negotiables are often linked to our values. There is a guy called Maslow who defined it at around 32 values that determine decision-making for humans. So, and you mentioned something quite interesting. You were talking about salary. The guy didn't want to drop his salary or maybe his title in order to reach what he wanted. In fact, it is about, and the salary and the titles, it belongs to the wall of values of status. So he didn't want to drop on that specific area. There are other values that might be important for the individual, like the fulfillment, like, for instance, doing something that is good for the society, with purpose for the society. So it's very important, in fact, in order to take the decisions, is to have an exercise of self-awareness.
Oh, we lost you. We lost you. Wait. We lost you. We lost him. Anyway, he's going to come back in a minute. So what he's saying, I think, is about self-awareness. If I know my business partner well enough by now, I can read his read his lips at this point. I still can't hear. Just log in and out. Yeah. So what he's talking about is self-awareness, and this is an important step. And it might sound super boring, guys, and it might sound like, you know, one of those typical things that we keep hearing. Oh, you need to know what you want to do, but it's fact, guys. It's fact. I cannot tell you how many times I talk to people and they don't go through the basic questions of what's next, what do I really want, why do I want this thing, is it really going to get me to where I want to go, right? And at the same time, understanding again those non-negotiables. Perhaps a non-negotiable for you could also be, I need to have really amazing health insurance because I have a condition or my kids have a condition or something like this. So you need to keep in mind all of these factors so that you don't spend your time you don't spend your time on things or on opportunities and areas that you're not going to take anyway, right? So this is very important. Ivan, I think you're back. Yes. Oh,
Yeah,
no.
yeah. Don't worry.
Yeah,
I don't know in which part you didn't listen to me, but
yeah. No, you
on.
stopped writing self-awareness, but go ahead.
So this exercise of self-awareness is super important, in fact, in order to determine what is the type of choices that we need to do. And we need to be like very sincere and raw, in fact, to determine really, do I, even though we don't like defining ourselves as like someone who likes status, but if it is so important, consider it in your equation. But going through the set of values and saying this I can do, this is important for me, and the rest is not, it is a good step ahead in order to make you have this choice, the correct choice.
Absolutely. And we're going to go ahead and go into, I'll go into the next slide in a minute. That's the final slide, and that's the one we're going to spend the most time on. But before we go into, I want to do another quick poll, and I want to drop a question for you guys as well. So the next poll is, it's a bit personal, but it's anonymous, so you don't have to worry. All right. So what is your age range? I'm just curious. Are you 20 to 30? I don't think we usually have anybody below 20 on this webinar. To be honest, I think it's more close to 30, 40. But I'm just curious, what is your age range essentially? Oh, I see. 30 to 40 and 40 and above. Perfect. Good. Okay, and we have somebody who's 19 as well. Great. All right. We still have a few people who didn't vote. They might be getting a cup of tea. All right. Or they just didn't want to answer. It's anonymous. Should be proud of your age. You've accomplished a lot. All right, cool. Good enough. So let me show you the results. So the majority on this call, 21% of you, 20 to 30, majority of you are 30 to 40 or 40 plus. Great. So, and another question that I wanted to quickly ask you, and you can drop the answer in the question box if you want to, if you feel comfortable. For those of you who said that you're looking for a career change, I'm curious, so that again, we make it more tailored towards you. What do you see as the biggest challenge right now for your career change? Is it that you're not sure kind of what's next? Is it because the change is too big? Is it you don't know what the change should be? Is it too many choices? So in the chat box or in the question box, drop us an answer to your biggest challenge right now as career change seeker or as somebody who is looking to progress in their career ladder. All right, so all right, we'll give them a few seconds. And in the meanwhile, while you guys answering that, before I go into the steps, because I want to see kind of the answer so I can make sure to tailor it accordingly to you guys. So another thing, and I want to bring it up again, I think it's very important, is your environment. So one of the things that I find, and we're getting the answers come, the question, I mean the answers coming in. One of the things I find is that I also had another client, another story. Let me tell you another story. I have plenty of stories. I can spend all day just telling stories about my career clients. So another story is that this girl, again, she was I think she was in marketing or something. I forget. It's been a while, but so she was looking to get to either change completely into something more, again, more something that she was looking for, or to progress in her current position. And so she got an opportunity via a recruiter, and the recruiter was encouraging her to take the position, and of course, and she said, listen, it's a really good position, and you know it's going to be safe and comfortable. And she said, Elena, you know, I know if I'm going to take this position, I'm going to be super comfortable and super safe. And the recruiter, you know, I feel she knows what she's talking about. I'm like, yes, perhaps it is super comfortable and super safe. Wonderful. But recruiter is probably making commission from getting you as a candidate because you're probably an amazing candidate. And B, the recruiter does not know you necessarily. She does not know your values, because when you pitched yourself to that recruiter, you pitched yourself to a particular position. she may not know the other parts of you that are really aspiring to do something else, which could be that other opportunity. And she said, yeah, but I'm going to be, it's guaranteed that the next 5 years I'm going to be safe. I said, let's stop right here. Did we forget what happened like just now, right? So this was like right in the middle of when COVID happened. I'm like, this has just happened to show us that we're no longer safe. We are not guaranteed. It is not a fact that just because you stay in a comfortable, well-paying job, you're going to have that job 6 months from now, a year from now. So we need to avoid doing things out of necessarily comfort. Well, let me pause for a second here. Actually, if you're fulfilled, if you are comfortable in a good way in your work, by all means, that should be it. If it's aligned with your values. I'm not saying everybody needs to grow. Not everybody needs to be a CEO. Not everybody needs to be an entrepreneur. That's your journey. That's for you to decide. But if, in fact, like so many of you, it seems like on this webinar, looking for a change because you don't want to be comfortable anymore, then we need to start realizing that comfort is probably the worst thing you can do. And most of you are in the range of 30 to 40, which means you can make a change quite a few times in your lifetime. If, of course, hopefully we'll live okay and no natural disaster happens. So just keep in mind that we're not necessarily guaranteed, and you're not always going to be safe in a particular. There's no guarantees, and if anything, COVID has proven us that. So all right, Yvonne, you wanted to mention something?
Yes, it's more about the age range of the audience today. So 30 to 40 is the moment where we have already explored many things that we didn't know if we wanted or not. It is the moment where we are critically thinking about how can I leave my mark on this earth? How can what can I leave for the rest of the society? We start producing a lot of thoughts about, because the projection that we are becoming older becomes more clear. So this is the right moment also to decide, how do you want to be when you are 60 and you are retiring? Are you going to be satisfied with the status quo, with what you have today? Or are you going to be satisfied with more money? And then the concept of fulfillment that you have mentioned, Elena, is quite important, because fulfillment implies that you understand what makes you happy, what gives you satisfaction, and not the satisfaction of the immediate reward, like pleasure on the moment, but it goes beyond. It makes you happy when you go to bed, and you go to bed in peace in your mind, because you have achieved something that is meaningful for you. The concept of fulfillment becomes more clear for the age range of 30 to 40, in fact.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can hear you. I think you're just a little bit delayed. So you stop talking, but then the voice continues. Technology is not kind with us today. I don't know what's happening. And we're a tech company. This is embarrassing.
No.
All right. Yes, absolutely. And I see your answers to your questions, guys, and thank you for sharing. Very good. We will come to all of them. So let's go into the action points. This is the last slide and the one that we want to spend the most time in. So what I want us to do is I want us to think ourselves as a business, as a startup, if you want, as a product. You are a product, or you have a service that you offer, right? And you need to launch yourself into the job market. The thing is that why I say let's look at it this way, because I feel that we don't give ourselves enough attention as a product, as somebody who has value to add, as much as we do to like our, I don't know, project at work, or our MBA studies, right? Or something else. We need to look at ourselves as that. Why? Because it will make us realize the areas where we might have blind spots. So for those of you who are looking for a career change, I have good news and bad news. Good news, let me start with the bad news. Bad news is that if you're still applying online, especially those of you that are mid-30s and above, so it's not even about the age, excuse me, it's more about your level. So if you're mid-level to senior level professional, you're still applying online and that's all you're doing is sending those applications in, you're probably wasting your time. Mid-level to senior level professionals, all right? So when we look at ourselves as business, if you are a business, are you just gonna sit all day as a business and send emails to your potential customers? Will your business survive? Yvonne, would we make it? You and I, all we did was send emails to people. People don't even open emails anymore. It's bad. Yeah, so if you imagine, so if you are a business, you're not going to do that. This is why I said, let's look at ourselves as a business. So what are some of the things, you guys can drop it in the question. I know some of you guys are MBA. I know some of you, so some of you MBA. So when it comes to business, what are some steps you need to take? You start with understanding. You might have that big idea, right? So you might have a big idea, right? Ivan, let's walk through, maybe you also have, you've started a couple of businesses as well. When you think of a business, what do we start? We think, you know, those small little steps right away, or do we have a big idea that we start with? Like, this is the dream.
In fact, what always happens, and sometimes it's wrong, is that we have the big idea, but then what we need to do with this big idea is to validate the assumptions that we have behind this big idea, because it's not what we think or what we like that potential customers are going to be liking. So if I want to open, let's say, my Mexican restaurant in Dubai, I need to validate if what are the customers are missing right now with the current offer. How can I differentiate myself from the current offer? And this differentiation, is it going to appeal my potential customers or not? And these are little experiments that I need to start doing in order to make myself aware, not of that how great is my idea, but what do the customers want?
Exactly, and this is what happens quite often, is that we know we're great, and we should be proud of all the things that we've accomplished. Yet at the same time, we forget to put ourselves in the shoes of a recruiter. And why do I say? I'll just spend a little bit of time, because maybe I'm not sure. So let me know if this is relevant to you guys. I think it might be. But when you're spending a lot of times applying online or LinkedIn, or just sending your CV randomly without somebody expecting it on the other end, what happens is that essentially you might have the best CV, but people don't know you guys. Look at that from a recruiter perspective. First of all, if you're applying online, if you're not tailoring your application specifically for that job role, I mean really specifically to that job role, right? So each implication for each job role, using the keywords, etc. Likelihood is that thing is going to spit your CV out, and it's not going to even make it to the human eye. That's number one. Number two, if you are a recruiter in HR, when I talk to recruiters, when I talk to HR, one of the first things they do when they're looking to hire somebody is they ask their network. When people, even not even just them, just people in general, if there's an opportunity available, the first thing people do is look around, because the chances are they already have somebody. The idea is to be on the list of those people that they think about, which we'll get to in a moment, of how to actually do that. In addition to that, recruiters and HR are just people. They're human beings, and they cannot possibly process, they cannot devote all the time to looking at all these applications. And again, it's much easier, it's less risk for them. So if you, again, from looking from a business perspective, they're minimizing the risk of spending their time and efforts looking at an application of somebody when they have 10, 15 people that they've met before, they were recommended, referred, etc. In addition to that, when you apply online, what happens is majority of the positions are probably already have somebody else in mind. They're just there because per HR policies in many companies, they require to put this up and make it, I think it's equal opportunity laws, whatever it is, right? So, and for those of you who are 40 plus and or just mid-level and above, mid-level and senior level roles, especially senior level roles, are not advertised, guys. It is too much risk for a company to bring in a senior manager who is not known to the company, especially one making a career change, if they don't have a good reputation, or not a good reputation, if they don't have a reputation like a known personal brand in the market, it's too much risk. So again, as Ivan was mentioning, we need to think from our customer's perspective. So who are your customers? Identifying yourself. Who are your customers? What do they need? And in addition to that, why should they buy your product versus somebody else's product? Right? All right. And this is the whole idea of, you can think big. Listen, dream big. There's nothing wrong with that. I actually, in fact, oftentimes when I talk to people about next steps, they tell me their next step and their kind of 5-10 year plan in their mind, and it's actually something they can achieve in 2 years, which again brings it to fear. We're afraid, Yvonne, to even dream big sometimes, to even say, what else can I do? If you don't believe you can do this thing, it's very difficult to convince other people. All right. You want to add anything here, Yvonne? No?
Yeah, just when you
look like you want to.
The concept of belief, I was thinking about it because this is something that is quite clear in order to start pivoting or changing the way you are managing your current job. One of the things that is quite important is the mindset. And this is that what you were just talking, in fact, why people would believe. So having the right mindset, being prepared, and having the process. And I guess that in the process, the things to be considered are, how do I start doing things today, not in 1 month when I have the time? How do I stop procrastinating, being stuck today, and do a small little actions? And this is what we call the process. Mindset is important, one. The process that you're going to implement to do actions that are going to move you from doing nothing to progress in your potential goal are super important.
Absolutely. So it's important. And then, like you said, just it's looking at, where you are today, where do you want to be, what are the steps, right? So can you do that stepping stones, or can you just make that jump? And I want to bring in some of these questions here. So for those of you who said, somebody said, I'm finding it difficult to get opportunities in the career change. And no, I'm going to come back to that one. One second. So for those of you who said your biggest challenge is because you don't have experience in the field, so previous experience in the field, and no room in existing company structure. Okay, so when it comes to career change, if your career change means you're jumping into something completely new, first of all, take a moment and make sure that it is in fact something completely new. What do I mean by that? Again, another example. I had somebody who she was making a change, and she was going from a big company to a smaller company, but that was more aligned with her values, and it's a little bit different. And she said, but it's like starting over. And I said, what do you mean starting over? You're not starting over. You have 10 years of experience. That means you know business, you understand how to work with people, you have perhaps emotional intelligence, you understand, you live in Dubai, which means your cultural intelligence is probably quite high. You are, I don't know, you have your network. You're not starting over. So I think sometimes we think that just because we're going into a new field, I mean, depends. I mean, if you're going from engineering to marketing, then it's very new, but still, there's a lot of skill set you can bring from all of those experiences. You need to be able to see that. So before jumping into career change, I want you to write down all of your accomplishments that you have done, all of the things that you're really proud of. What are the things that are applicable to business? People skills, sales skills, doesn't matter which industry, doesn't matter what you're selling. If you can sell, you could probably sell anything if you're a good salesperson. True, right? So, well, in most cases. So looking at what you have done, because you might be surprised that actually that change is not as big as you think. All right, so starting with that. So, and if you don't have experience, you might not like what I'm about to tell you. And it depends on, how, is it really fresh, or is it, I would need more information, but let's say you really don't have experience in that field. The chances are, when it comes to career change, is that there are gonna be sacrifices, guys. There's gonna be compromises. So in fact, you might not take the change that you really want. So again, looking at the steps. So looking at what you can do today to get you to that next step, because you might not, again, depends on how big is the jump. You might not be able to make that jump here, but you can make it here, here, and then here, a little bit down the line. And it might take a year, 2 years, or 5 years. I don't know. It depends on, again, your situation. So looking at what is it that's missing in your current profile and how can you acquire this? If it's experience, if it's a certification, if it's a degree, or maybe it's just you repositioning what is it that you have to offer in a way that sells in the new industry, which is a whole different conversation. I wish we had time for it, but we don't. Feel free to reach out separately though. All right. A couple of other people, I guess Yvonne has disappeared on us. Yes, like transferable skills, absolutely. Transferable skills is exactly what I'm talking about. Because the more and more, also I'm curious, how many of you look at the future of work reports? How many of you look at the future of work reports? Future, you don't have to answer me, but just think about it. Future work reports like by McKinsey, future work reports, especially now with what's happening, because business is going to change significantly. If you are changing from a technical role into a non-technical role, I would really look into those soft skills like emotional intelligence, negotiation, ability to sell. Sales skills are applicable everywhere and they're super valuable. Your ability to present, your public speaking ability is also one of the top like power skills, you want to call them, for the future. Make sure you are spending some time understanding what is hot and trendy in your industry today and tomorrow. Tomorrow, I mean like future. This is very, very, very important. This requires a little bit of homework, a little bit of research on your part, so that you don't become irrelevant. Another thing I want to mention here is that a lot of people have become irrelevant because they spend so much time in one particular area, because we've been told that it's going to be safe, we're going to have a job and gets paid well. And now we found ourselves in a situation where all we know is this one area and we don't have other areas that we can actually work in, other skill sets, because we didn't take time to diversify. So unless you're a doctor, a NASA engineer, or a very specific, those sort of specialties, I highly, highly recommend to look at how you can diversify your experience. Meaning, if you're a marketing person, you should look into behavior design. That's the next big thing in marketing, right, Yvonne? You probably know a little bit about that as well.
Yes, absolutely. So the key thing is to say that if you have some gaps and you want to cover these gaps and complement them, is how do I create a process that is, regardless of how tough it is to reach, to complement the full skill that I need to build? How can I start with a process that I start with a small little chunk of things that I can learn as of tomorrow? How can I start devoting time, my 5 minutes of closing the gaps with where I want to be? If, as you say, that if it is about behavioral design, we didn't learn about behavioral design in a course of 2 days. We learn it through our experience and complementing our readings every single day. Actually, in fact, Elena and myself, we spend quite a chunk of the early morning building up this skill that we still think that we need to build even for the future.
I don't think I've ever studied so hard in my life than I did in the last 6 months building this product for Besser. Really, I know more research, and I've done more research than I ever want to do in my life at this point. I have to keep doing it. So far we've covered, think of yourself as a business, guys. You are the product. What are the values? What is your unique selling point? What makes you different from every other finance person who has an MBA, who has a CIMA certification, etc.? Beautiful. What makes you different? What is it that you're offering? You need to look into that. That's a little bit of self-awareness, right? You need to think big, but then break it into small little chunks. What can you do today? What can you do tomorrow? What can you do a week from now, a month from now, etc.? Because otherwise it becomes very overwhelming. And what's happening is when it becomes overwhelming, we're not seeing progress. And then we feel less confident. Our applications, we keep getting automated no from a bunch of online applications, which then kills our confidence even more, which then increases the fear, the emotion of this is never going to happen, which then gets our mindset, and now I'm desperate for a job because I feel like I cannot find a job. So then you start to go into desperate mode. and that plays out as well when you're talking to people. So before we finish up on these last 2 points, and I get to your questions as well, last question poll for you guys to do quickly. How much of your time per week do you spend on your career, whether it's learning new things, whether it's creating new networks or keeping up with the right network, whether it's planning, goal settings, etc.? Amazing. Well, you just got 1 hour this week, so everybody has to put, nobody can put 0. At least this is not for this week.
That's right.
You've got an hour this week here. All right, amazing. So basically half. So half of you 1 to 2 hours. Let me just show it to you guys. Beautiful, love it. 1 to 2 hours, 3 to 4 hours. I like it. I hope nobody's spending like 40 hours a week. It's not healthy. Don't do it. Don't overdo it. All right. And our well-being research that we do with Western as well is we know that when it comes to career change, you know how they tell you, and I probably have told you this before as well, I said treat it like a full-time job. Don't treat it like a full-time job, because it's not a full-time job. It's more exhausting. It is more exhausting than a full-time job. So don't treat it like a full-time job. Spend 3-4 hours focus time looking at your learning something, or focused on your career, reaching out to people, which I'll mention that. So anyway, that's good. So I'm glad nobody said less, because this is part of the game. You have to keep learning, you have to keep seeing what's happening and connecting. And I hope you're spending a lot of that time connecting with new people. I'm not going to go too much into, yeah, Ivan, go ahead.
So what we should definitely avoid is that every time that we think about how unhappy we are with our current career or how unfulfilled we are, is that we start having rushes of, I need to devote 10 hours to go and find what I want to do or close the gaps and so on. What we need to develop is recurrent exercise of consistency, like every single day devoting your 5 to 10 minutes to progress. When you do it with intensity, you burn out, you are anxious, and anxiety is something that we humans feel about each other. So if you are desperate, I would feel it. And your career advisor, your hiring manager will spot it.
Absolutely. Energy speaks, guys, not to get all voodoo on you, but energy speaks. I didn't finish. The last question is also previous experience in a new field. Couple of things you can do. And this is what I mentioned, again, depends on your situation. I don't know your guys' situation, but if you don't have experience in a new field and you need to get it, a couple of things you can do is either, if you're working in a current company, if your management is okay with it, try to volunteer for projects in other departments. Again, depends if your company is okay with that. If you are unemployed at the moment, project-based, volunteer your time, talk to your network, ask them if you can help them with a particular task. Literally reach out to people and say, listen, I'm really looking to dive into this, I don't know, the marketing field. I want to be a digital marketer. I would love to offer you my services for a month or 2 months free of charge. I just need experience. Again, depends on your financial situation, depends on your non-negotiables. But if you don't have experience, it's very unlikely somebody's going to hire you without it for that new role. Or you say, maybe I need a job, I need a salary, career change is not the path right now. So maybe I need to get the job in the experience that I have, because I need to make money, because we all have responsibilities. And then you say, you develop a plan so that you are supporting yourself financially. At the same time, your weekends, evenings, vacations, whatever it is spent acquiring this new experience. That's the reality. There's no other ways, guys, unless you have a really great contact or a family member who's willing to take a shot at you. 95% of the time, the only way to get experience, either start from entry-level position, again, depends on various factors and your non-negotiables, or volunteer, project-based, online work, see what's available remotely. There's a lot of remote work globally happening right now, a lot of opportunities. Somebody said that there's no room in the existing company structure. That is not a challenge. That is a sign for you to find another company. That is a challenge, but that's a challenge you cannot do anything about. And that's very important. If you cannot control, same with my client in Saudi, he's an expat, the company promotes only nationals of the country for C-level suite roles. You cannot do anything about it. Say bye and go on to find your next job, your next company. If there's no role in your existing role and your existing company, then you need to look at different companies. We often cannot get the right contact at organizations that will understand the transferable skills and experience. Completely agree. Majority of HR and GCC, unfortunately, let me say this kindly, majority of the people that are working in HR, it's simply just a job for them. They're looking to tick the box. They just want to hire somebody. They're not really interested in dissecting you. They're not really interested in figuring out what is your passion, how can you bring value to the company. They're interested if you fit the little box that they've created called the job description. That is this reality. It is not wrong or right. It's just what it is, and it's one of the things we cannot control. What we can control is to make sure that our pitch is so strong that we do our best to present ourselves in a way that we know how to best present ourselves. We cannot control biases. We cannot control opinions of others. We can influence them by making sure we know what we want and what we have to value we have to offer. And also a little bit of psychology. I always say sometimes, you know, when it comes to interviews, it's just a psychology game. Can you give them exactly what they want to hear? You'll probably get through to the next round. All right, so ticking their boxes. Granted, they like you, and hopefully you'll go through the next round. So we cannot change change the person interviewing us, but we can try to influence by making sure that we know exactly what we have to offer. And that's, again, that will only work if depends on the person. So it's out of your hands in that case. Somebody said also recent redundancies, and I have one for you, Ivan, actually. I want you to talk about that, but after this one. So recent redundancies, the challenge is the current situation with very limited opportunities. Yes, it is challenging, absolutely. Not many companies are hiring. Well, let me rephrase that. People are hiring. I still see movement in the market. However, it is limited. If you are coming from hospitality, if you're coming from any of the industries that's been super affected by this change, you might as well forget about it for now. You really need to look into making a major career change, and sometimes it's going to have to start at a lower level, because again, this is one of those things where life happens. It happened to all of us in this case. We're all affected. Some people were affected more than others, and this is where, again, we cannot control it. And I see a lot of people who are in hospitality and aviation industry that are sitting around talking about how this happened instead of focusing on what they should be doing at the moment. So being paralyzed and where we are right now, again, is an emotion. So we need to get moving into the right direction, which means we need to really shift. So if your industry really got wiped out in this COVID, definitely you need to do an industry change, because your industry, like aviation, all these things are not going to recover for the next 2-3 years. Retail, it's going to be a while. So it's challenging, but this is what you can do in this time. Again, guys, I don't know your current situation. I don't know your financial situation. I'm just giving you sort of basics to consider, but feel free to reach out to us separately. But in this case, I would make sure that I'm spending so much time meeting new people. I would make sure that I am networking so hard at this moment, every day, like every week, meeting at least, I don't know, 5 to 10 new people online, in webinars, old contacts, reconnecting with people, because the market will pick up at some point, and you want to be one of the people on the mind of those individuals that will be hiring. Another question we had is about fear. How do you overcome fear, Ivan? Do you want to talk about that a bit?
Okay, so what we cannot do is that fear is one of the most natural reactions of the brain. And in fact, the two basics reactions of the brain that we have, in fact, is fear and pleasure. Fear is determined by the fact that there is molecules that are being produced in order to protect us. So it is very natural to produce these molecules in the brain that signals I need to protect myself. So you cannot do anything against the production of these molecules. What you can do is about how is going to be your reaction in order to moderate this production. The production of these molecules will happen, fear will happen, but what are the tricks that I can produce in my brain in order to reduce the amount of quantity? There are different tricks that people that we use, in fact, in our practice with a lot of people, is to create like automatic pictures that are going to be reducing this level of fear. What do I mean by automatic pictures? It means that to create fake images, like a movie trailer that you have in your brain, that it is something where you are happy, where you are satisfied, fulfilled, whatever it is. The brain that does not distinguish between fake or reality. The brain, in fact, it just produces this image and believes that this image is what you are living in right now. So when we are going through the process of helping people, what we do is that we help them bring back these images, these good images with fulfillment, with achieving their goals that are positive for the brain, that are going to produce the molecules that make you happy. The brain is going to feel it like it is a reality, and is going to tame the amount of molecules of fear. This is something that it looks so simple, and it has taken so many years in order to understand the simplicity of the brain. But this is one of the tricks that we use very often, and we work with our current base of customers.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, I know we're over time, guys, a bit. I just want to finish up on the last 2 points here on the slide as well. And when you think about it, guys, if you look at the habits of people that have reached some sort of level of success, whatever, I don't know, whoever you aspire to, if you look at their daily routines and habits, that's where it's at. There's no magic. And I wish, I really wish this research we're doing, I don't know, we need to do something with it, Ivan. We need to just do a webinar on just our research, because it shows that if you just stick to certain things like Ivan is talking about, and the methodology we're applying here, it really does yield results. Unfortunately, we are human beings, and we need satisfaction now. We need it now. We need a job now. We don't want to work for a month or 2 months looking for a job. We want it now. Or we spend 6 months doing something that's not working, and we don't ask ourselves, why is it not working? And we keep doing the same thing and wonder why there's no change, because we don't take a moment and to say, I haven't heard from anybody in 2-3 months, and I've been really doing everything correctly, or so I think. So maybe I need to reflect and say, what am I doing wrong? Taking a moment, taking a pause, looking at your routines every week, checking in, what went right this week, what was good, what was successful in my job search or this month, pausing for a moment and seeing what you're doing. We all have blind spots, which brings me to the point on the slide, is that you need to find trustworthy advisors and partners, just like in business. You have blind spots, just as I do, as Ivan does, which is why we make great business partners, because we have very different skill sets. And we're completely blinded by the opposites of the skill set. I mean, and it's very important to have trustworthy people around you in order, and this is very important, if you want to be part of a high-profile network, if you want to be part of people who are aspiring to do something, who are I don't know, they're really the kind of people you want to have in your circle, whoever you aspire to, whatever it is. You need to make sure that you are doing your best to become that person. This is very important. We want to have these amazing networks, yet we want to come, request information, and then we don't even say thank you, for example, right? So when we're talking about building a network and having those people around us, guys, we need to make sure that we're doing our part. Example, and this is something that the Dr. Graham was gave an example. So she says, listen, Elena, I love it when people reach out to me on LinkedIn and ask me for advice. But for example, she said, I'm not going to answer a question like somebody emailed her. She said, And they said, can you take a look at my profile and can you tell me where I should, which area I should go into? And she said, listen, if you would have emailed me and said, you know what, Dr. Dawn, I read a couple of your articles. I really liked your point about A, B, C, and D. I really made some changes, but I feel really stuck in this one area. I don't know how to move forward. She said, I would have probably given that person 30 minutes of my time or free coaching session because they've done their homework. Nobody cares about you like you do. And this is something that really upsets me because it's like, we want to have these amazing things around us, but we don't think about, like, networking is not a one-way street. And I think I mentioned in one of my social media posts this week is, if it's a one-way street, it should be you adding value to your network. Because high-profile networks, people that can offer you those opportunities, they don't need you. Let's be realistic. Sorry to say that. You need them more than they need you. You need to be valuable to them, because they have their priorities, they have their goals, they have their things, they have their circle. Why should they stop and focus on you if you didn't even do your homework? So when you're reaching out to people, when you're asking for advice, do your homework for you, not for that person, for you, so that you get into that network. This is very, very important. That person can possibly open doors for you, but don't send people an email. I'm not saying you guys do. I'm sorry. Now I'm just going on a rant. Let me stop. Anyway, let me stop. You get the point. Add value. And if you are going to take time of somebody that you think might be able to recommend you, make sure you approach them in the right way. Because everybody has priorities. It's not like because they're not nice people. Everybody has priorities. You need to make it so that it makes them want to make you a priority and part of their day, that it's worth their time. If somebody, so anyway, enough about that. So trustworthy advisors and partners, people that you can get advice from that are around, speak with individuals. You'd be surprised how many people are willing to share their stories. I'm not going to go into the networking too much. If you want, let me know. I have plenty of articles I've written on Forbes on this. I have plenty. We've done a session on this. I'll send you the recording that gives you like a step-by-step. It gives you sample emails you can send. We have all of that. I'm happy to share. Just email us, etc. And another big part, especially if you're mid-level to senior level professional, is actually everybody, even the student that we have on the call here today. Actually, this is a perfect time for you to start as well, is your personal branding. You can call it your reputation, whatever you want to call it. It's a brand. You are a brand. You whether you know it or not, you represent something in the world. Okay? And hopefully that something is an image that you want to represent. So your personal brand is very important. I'm not saying you need to go and start making videos. You can, that's the future. It's pretty good. It probably gets you noticed, etc. But voice, if anything, voice is the next big thing. So maybe you want to, I don't know, you want to be known in a particular area. You want to start a podcast. You want to do voice recordings. Start posting content in LinkedIn or whichever area. So again, keeping your audience in mind when you're building your brand in a particular area. Keep your audience in mind. Where does your audience hang out? Do they hang out on LinkedIn? Do they hang out on Facebook? Do they hang out on Instagram? Brings us back to the business model. Business, if you think yourself as a business, your communication strategy needs to go where? Your campaigns need to go where? To your audience. You're not going to spam the world, right? You're not going to email an engineer if you're looking to be, if you want to be a marketeer. Pay attention to your audience. Where are they? Are there alumni groups you can join? Are there professional bodies you can get in touch with and join their networks? Are there groups on LinkedIn you can join? Your community, whoever it is. I'll pause here. Ivan, do you want to add anything here?
No, it's fine.
Okay, and I just want to get, I know we're over time. I'm sorry, guys. Ivan, you're good on time? You have a few minutes?
Yes. Yes.
Keeping you. So, and a couple of other things is somebody asked me, so keep your questions. We're pretty much done with the content for us. And actually, before I finish up with the questions, here's a couple of ways that you guys can get in touch with us. So you can of course check us out on LinkedIn, add us on LinkedIn. We post a ton of content. And we really do. And if you think about it, guys, there's so much free content about how to reach out, cold emails, personal brand, how to build it. Spend a little bit of time to develop it. Everything is out there. You don't even need to hire a coach. I'm here to help. You don't even, I'm telling you right now, you don't even need to hire me. You could do it yourself if you really wanted to. It makes it easier when you have a coach, absolutely, because that's one of your strategic partners that you can have under your belt. I have a coach, Yvonne is one of them actually, but you can do it yourself. There's a lot of content out there. There's no excuse to not know how to do something in this day. Then if you need clarification, this is when you can get somebody. Listen, if you're ready to sort of get started as well, if you're ready to go from thinking to doing, we have different courses that we offer. Check us out. If you're on this webinar, you get 20% as well. If you email us within the next 24 hours, so by this time, by 8 p.m. tomorrow evening, if you email us, we'll drop our emails. You get 20% of the courses. They're really reasonable priced. Check them out if you're interested. You can just scan the QR code. Amazing stuff. You get to really put some of the things into action. So scan the QR code, check it out. If you're interested, reach out to us. If you bring a friend, we can also discuss potential discounts as well. So let us know. And again, if you're on this webinar, you get 20%. Just drop us an email and say, I was on this webinar. We'll double check our records, and happy to have you on board. It's really amazing, freshly designed programs that we've designed. So check them out. And for those of you who said, I'm confused between if I should select teaching or stick to office-based or sales job. Whenever you are not sure which way to go, ask yourself these questions. Where do you see you have the most energy? What's really exciting to you? So if you're a little bit confused, what drives you? What's aligned with your values more, right? So if you look at also pros and cons, sometimes helps, like just writing these things out. Sometimes say, well, actually, yeah, I really want to go here. So look into what really thrives. Like, can you see yourself teaching in the near future, or do you feel like you want to be more in well, actually, you just gave me 3 different jobs. You had teaching, office, or sales. 3 very different jobs, by the way. Very different functions. I would look into what's most exciting to you. Are you a person who wants to who has the patience for teaching, first of all, right? It depends on teaching. Who are you teaching? Kids? Are you teaching university? Are you teaching corporates? Office job? It's a very general question. I can't answer it because it's too broad. So just drop me an email. Somebody else also said, oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, somebody said, Ivan, thank you for guiding us on this path and for bringing us to reality. You're welcome. Thank you for being here. And listen to my rants. I just get really frustrated because it's so simple. And I just feel that we make it difficult on ourselves. Somebody said, I want to change to data scientist, but my current title is data analytical analyst. I don't know what either one of those really does, so I'm not the best person. Ivan, do you know how to answer that question? I don't know that answer.
So I mentioned a little bit that I was a little bit in the science. I was in the science world, so I'm a little bit of a nerd. I know a little bit about the scope. So if you are trying to move from that from your current job to data scientist, you will need to complement your skills. Right now, there is so much for free information about how to complement, in fact, your skills in data science. Online courses given by reputable universities that can be done in your spare time. So if you really want to do, first close the gaps of knowledge, and then close the gaps of experience, right? Closing the gap of knowledge will require that you spend just 5 to 10 minutes every day doing an online course. Then close the gap of experience by offering your services. There is so many smaller startups who need a data scientist for free. Spend some time with them in order to practice.
Absolutely. And yeah, and unfortunately, guys, for those of you who are really looking to get that experience, there's just no other way. Like, there's no magic, and that's the thing. And what I want you to keep in mind is when it comes to career change, you know, life happens. We didn't know COVID was going to happen. This is a perfect example. So just take a moment, and when you're making a decision towards that next step, don't even look necessarily 5 years down the line. It's unrealistic. We don't know what's going to happen. The world of work is moving like this. Businesses are changing, the professions are changing. So look at just, if you're going to spend the next year doing something, what is it going to be? And also somebody said about fear. What I want you to ask yourself is, what is the worst case scenario? What is the worst case scenario? Because I guarantee you, if you put your worst case scenario on the table, it's not so bad compared to the reward that you're going to gain as a result of making that change or taking that jump, etc. And another thing when it comes about fear, there's also a fear of being in the same place, yet we don't think about that. We think about the fear of what's there. We don't think about the fear of, what is it going to cost me if I'm going to stay here? If I'm going to stay in this position, what is going to cost me? This is important, because especially those, majority of the people in this webinar, 30s and 40s, and there's so much time to make a change. And again, I don't know your financial situation, I don't know who you are, etc. But you know, and we all have bills to pay, we have responsibilities. Sometimes going back home is not an option. Completely with you on that. But what I'm saying is that time will pass anyway. Find out where you want to go and figure out a plan to get there. And if it takes you 2 years, it takes you 2 years. It takes you 5 years, it takes you 5 years. That time is going to pass anyway. You might as well do something towards the thing. That's it. And along the way, you'll minimize the fear. Along the way, you minimize the risk. You'll probably clarify a few things on yourself as well, etc. And okay, I think that's it for. I think that's it for the questions. Any other questions? I mean, I can spend hours here, but Yvonne has things to get to, I'm sure, as so do you guys.
So I just wanted to highlight, Elena, that just for, because I see one question is that about the specific of this current slide. What people learns during this course is about how do you create yourself a process where you are constantly progressing. How do you play with positive psychology, neuroscience? This is the big words, but how do you find a step-by-step approach that you can design regardless of your situation that will help you progress? So how do you learn how to learn, in fact, and produce the outcomes that you want out of your life? And this is the core of this course. I hope that I have answered the question of the person who was mentioning this.
Yeah. And so if I were to summarize sort of what we finished on, or what we've discussed here today, guys, is that change is possible at any age. I see people do it all the time. It's more common than you imagine. Fear is just an emotion, as so many other emotions. It's a chemical thing firing in your mind, completely normal. You need to be able to manage that. When you're looking at making any kind of shift career, whether you're climbing up the career ladder, same thing, guys. Treat it as a business. If you are climbing up career ladder or something we didn't touch base on, I apologize for those of you who are changing the careers. We didn't spend a lot of time on it, but it's the same approach, guys. Who's your competition? Who needs to know about you? Your senior management, etc. Right? Your network. It's the same thing. It's the same steps. Look at yourself as a business. Who needs what you have to offer? Look at your network. Look at your personal brand. And how do you need to grow your personal brand in your industry for your particular goals? Some of us means making content on LinkedIn. Some of us means making content on Snapchat. I don't know. It depends. And finally, if you want to get the networking one, I've done plenty of videos on this. We've done a webinar on this. It really gives you the step-by-step. So reach out to us. Let us know. We just reach out to us on LinkedIn if you want. Let us know, and we'll send you the recording. If you have any other questions, let us know. You will also get this recording as well, and the presentation. So you will get that by tomorrow. And of course, if you want to get a discount, it's 20%. Just mention that you were on this webinar and we will apply it. That is all for us. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your
It
time.
was great to be with you.
Juan, thank you.
Thanks, Elena.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Goodbye. Have a good evening. Bye.